Are live on Exopolitics TV. Welcome back. I'm Alfred Lambremont Webre, and we have our new meeting with C60's originator. Amazing. I mean, if you think of the implications of this, every time I think about it, I can't believe it. Chris Burris was responsible for creating the C60 that was used in the 1996 Nobel Prize trials. I think I got that right. Is that right?
2012. The Nobel Prize was the discovery,
discovery.
the 85 discovery, and then we provided the material to the 2012 study where the rats lived twice as long and died without tumors.
And that's when the timeline changed. We went from the catastrophic timeline to the positive timeline in 2012. So I love it when the circle is squared and all's right with the world. And Patty Greer, who is the cosmic architect behind it all. Welcome, Patty.
Thank you. Yeah, C60 has been an interesting journey, but I am honored to be working with the big boys.
Yeah,
So,
we've got a great partnership, so we're excited to be here with you, Alfred.
Well, there's lots of news here.
Have things changed a little there?
Whoa, you know, at least in my world, and I just want to, in terms of doing an agenda, at least in my world as a journalist, we've been monitoring what we call the 5G coronavirus. And 5G, because there's all sorts of scientific papers that say that 5G, 60 gigahertz and electromagnetics, Wuhan, China being the 5G capital of the world, actually formed the electromagnetic soup that really started the whole thing. And that now, lo and behold, vitamin C, high dose vitamin C is the treatment of choice that they're doing clinical trials on in And C60evo.com is, lo and behold, 172 times more powerful than vitamin C. So it looks like we're right on schedule. Could you talk about that data more about vitamin C as an antioxidant and C60 as an antioxidant, Chris?
Yeah, absolutely. And let me talk about that in a second, because there's even additional information. So we're talking about a product that we sell. We're also talking about COVID-19, and I think it would be irresponsible to imply, it's certainly irresponsible to state and irresponsible to imply that that we believe C60 Evo, the formulation, has a direct impact on COVID-19. What I like to say is I like to share pieces of information that I use to make the decision to send extra bottles to my mom and ask her to up her dose, right? So those are two totally different things. We're not saying that it has a specific impact. One of the pieces of data, you're right. There is research that shows that the C60 Evo formula is 172 times more powerful than vitamin C. And that's an interesting, like, getting that type of data is actually not a trivial thing to get that data. And it's important to know like how things react in your body, because there is some literature, some kind of thoughts going out there that maybe super high doses of antioxidants are not necessarily beneficial, and at some points can turn to be detrimental. So just like everything, maybe it's moderation, although the moderation could be pretty high, all things in moderation. The other thing that they're using in China, other than high dose vitamin C, is actually anti-HIV drugs. And I saw an article out of Spain that showed some benefit. Basically, there was a patient who was on a 3-day decline, and they gave him some anti-HIV medication, and the next day he was recovered, somewhere between those two states. And it was significantly better. It's interesting because in the late 90s and the early 2000s, And in fact, there is a patent related to carbon-60 as an HIV inhibitor. And so those are the kinds of pieces of information. We also know we're trying to make sure our immune system is as strong as it can be. And we know that C60 Evo supports our immune systems. It's a known antioxidant. It's a known anti-inflammatory. It's a known antiviral. I just described a patent associated with C60 interrupting the HIV virus. So it's a known antiviral, and it's a known antibacterial. And those are things that you probably want in your system now. In general, good for good immune system support. So you couple those things, and yeah, in fact, I've kind of rushed over a couple extra bottles to my mom and asked her to double her dose during this time period.
Excellent.
Amazing. Patty, what are your thoughts on and what do you observe? And I know that this is how the C60 is entering into people's consciousness with regard to the, quote, pandemic that seems to be being kind of the headline that people are waking up to every day.
Well, I think you and I watch completely different news than Chris and people at the lab would watch, which is complimentary to both of us. You know, you have to focus on what you're used to and what feels real to you. So I know that Chris and I don't talk politics because I'm so off the wall. Heck, you're in the multiverse. So Chris is in the lab doing the science, and the combination of all of us brings together some really interesting people. What I feel is that right now we are at the tip of an iceberg, and I honestly don't know whose news is correct. But right now, with all of us being locked away in our homes for who knows how many weeks, there's got to be a bigger purpose than, oh my God, I'm going to get the flu. And bear with me if I don't buy it. And the reason I don't buy it is because I've seen enough videos where October 19th, 2019, Bill Gates and his clan of corporations and the CDC and Johns Hopkins actually had a meeting where they did what do they call it? A pretend coronavirus outbreak, where they actually planned this event. And it's called Event 201. There are so many videos on YouTube. This should be front and center news. But this was a planned, and I have a new name for it, plandemic. This is more than a pandemic. This is a plandemic created by, and it truly was, Bill Gates and his clan. And it's on video. How can you not believe it? And it's all the major players in the health systems of America and the world also. I think we had UN there and WHO. So we've got really big players that were planning this in October. What made them pull it and make it happen now, you know, is anybody's guess, but we do know that this was planned. So it's not a surprise. And one of the most important things I saw in this plan meeting in October was that the biggest piece was that we need to fill the media. We need to stuff the media. Can you guys handle it? Can you guys handle it? And there it went. You know, they were like, we've got this. So to watch it happen now is devastating, to see that they got away with it, that it's gone this far. But again, what if, what I really believe is true, and you and I talked about it, Alfred, last week in our heartfelt News Evolution show. And we had such a response because, you know, when we talk about survival, people are going to be digging deep. And I feel positive. I think that while we're all away in our homes, a lot of arrests, a lot of cleanup, serious cleanup is going on. And if we were in the streets and if the kids were in school, there would be so much more risk when you go after really deep state people, and a lot of them, politicians, Hollywood, sports people. I mean, all the extremely wealthy people that are in this group, this club that most of us know about now. I think the walls are coming down. Now, I'm praying that this is what's happening, is that we're being completely cleaned up. I mean, look outside, there's no airplanes, there's no chemtrails, there's no cars compared to what's normal. There's still a lot of cars. Chris said Houston, you wouldn't know there's a lockdown. In Boulder, I drove around for a couple, maybe one day, and it was right 2 days ago, and we were supposed to be in at 5. And so I got all my chores done. I got home at 10 to 5, and I felt like such a good little girl. But what I saw and took a photo of was our huge Boulder Community Hospital with an empty parking lot. Now, our parking lot is always very full at the hospital. So now you've got less staff, less visitors, less. But if there is a pandemic in Boulder that's all shut down now, and my phone at 7 this morning, and what, at 7? I mean, I get up at 5:30, so it doesn't matter, but it's rude. It's aggressive. It's to scare people into submission. And bear with me, but I think half the people I know that are, I've got coronavirus, I think they've got a flu or a cold or allergies. But when you've got this much media saying, oh my God, everybody run, don't breathe, don't go out your house, then anybody with any symptoms is going to immediately throw themselves in the bucket of, oh my God, I'm dying. So bear with me. I feel bad for people that are sick. I certainly feel bad for people that have corona in any deep level. But as I ask people on Facebook, on LinkedIn, you know, who do you know? Do you know anybody firsthand that's tested positive? I really haven't heard yes to that, but yes to a lot of people with sick family, sick friends, and everybody's scared they've got it. So the fact that they planned it, and at the end of the meeting, it is so in your face, and we're going to blow up the media with the pandemic. I think that this is going to be what takes down fake news for good. And I think we're in a huge cleanup. I feel really good about it. And if I'm wrong, then it's going to be really bad what they've been doing while we're all locked up. But I can't go there with my mind. I'm going to stay in the positive, because I know that every thought, feeling, word that comes out of me goes out into the world. And I'm going to keep Patty positive, polished, because I really believe that good things are happening. But it's going to take patience, and you're going to have to really learn to love your home. So Boulder Community Hospital should have been over full if we had a pandemic here that's closing down all of our restaurants, all of our stores. I mean, there has to be a bigger reason. So that's Boulder.
Amazing. Yeah, yeah. Well, you know, bringing it back to C60, I think whatever your perspective is, and I just finished writing a 38-slide legal brief, which will be out in the public, let's say, over the next 24 hours, that substantiates a lot of what you just said, using world medical experts. And that is that, for example, the UK National Health Authority took COVID-15 off of the list of high concern infectious diseases. 12 of the top medical experts in Europe, we have them on the record in the legal brief as saying that they're completely opposed to the lockdowns and the quarantines and the near martial laws, because the negative effect of the economic effect is going to outweigh, you know, that medically the COVID-15 is laughable, you know, from an epidemiological point of view. Luckily, I've got a certificate from the Harvard School of Public Health, so I know what these guys are talking about. I feel safe knowing that I'm around and I'm on C60 EVO. precisely because of the antioxidant effect and because of the expansion of consciousness effect. And because of my background as a public health advocate, that was one of my careers, was as a community health center administrator and as a public interest lawyer. And so we have stepped up into a very active time now, because this is the time that all the lawyers are going to come out of the woodwork to go to court to have all of these quarantines and bans, which are phony, overturned, you see. And I'm involved in all of that. So we're kind of at a certain part, but I'm an advocate of C60 EVO because I think it makes people better human beings. Now, I know that that's a weird thought.
I agree.
How do you feel about that thought, Chris?
I agree. The scientist in me struggles with that type of statement. I know at one point somebody gave me a testimonial, and I continue to get just amazing testimonials. But somebody made a testimonial to me, and I replied to them, well, it's almost like C60 Evo, the formulation is a therapy, right? Because some of the subtle things that happen, and I do believe that we can explain these, but some of the subtle things that happen are people are getting more done. I've got a testimonial of a lady who just she described it herself as, I've got a longer fuse with my children, right? So clearly she has a short fuse with her children normally. And since she's been on the formulation, she's got a longer fuse. We've got testimonials from a big distributor here in Houston that one of the things that kind of clued her in that she was getting some benefits was that she cleaned out her closet, right? And cleaned out her garage. And those are not like, hey, take this, you'll clean out your garage, right? That's not something that we can hang our hat on. The implications, and I think the explanation, a lot of our testimonials are that people take this in the morning. They tell us that it's giving them mental focus during the day, energy during the day, and then they sleep better that night, which is just super interesting because most of quote unquote sleep aids will actually knock you out, right? You take it right before you're supposed to fall asleep. It knocks you out. You don't get your REM sleep. You don't get your NREM sleep. And you wake up without the desire for sleep, but you haven't had all the healing sleep that you actually need. And I'm not aware, really, there's only one or two things that I'm aware of that you can do in the morning to impact your sleep that night. One of them is exercise. If you wake up in the morning and you exercise, you will probably sleep better that night. So that's good. And the other one, I was on another podcast, and they shared with me that if you get exposure to light, right? So we all know that our circadian rhythm is highly impacted to your exposure to sunset, right? Or sunrise and then sunset. So if you wake up and watch the sun rise, that's going to have an impact on your ability to sleep that night. So it's only those very natural things and our C60 Evo that I've ever heard of. You do it in the morning, energy and focus during the day, and then better sleep that night. And I think with the better sleep, you end up, more energy during the day, better sleep. You're cleaning out your closet, you're cleaning out your garage. I know I used to, before taking the product regularly, I used to take lots of naps on Saturdays, like multiple naps before noon on Saturdays. And now I don't nap on the weekends anymore. And it's not because I'm not like putting myself, after I do some chores and sit down on the couch and watch a little TV, which is when I normally would have fallen asleep in my nap. I'm still doing that activity, but I'm not just falling asleep. And so that's, again, more energy, better sleep. Those are the things that we think are driving these changes in behavior. And ultimately, if you get better sleep, it's like therapy. Like that's one of the things that you can do to impact depression, impact all kind of mental illnesses. Is if you get better sleep, those will get better.
I have to say, I'm finally sleeping better. I don't know what shifted, but now I'm just down hard. I get up maybe once or twice, but then right back hard. So something shifted in me where I'm finally sleeping again really well.
Good.
And it does make a difference. I mean, you definitely notice it throughout the day. So the one thing I wanted to bring up, because Chris is the scientist, he's at the lab, and they're testing all these other products now to see who's got great C60 and who's maybe shorting their products, and what we're seeing in the market overall. And I'm just face down in social media, hammering back and forth with people's comments. And what I've noticed in the last 2 weeks, which I had never noticed before, is something changed. And I don't think it's a coincidence. I think it happened after Patty Big Mouth went public, and Chris is maintaining me with a slight choke chain, saying we're not going to name names yet, you know, who is shorting their products. But of course, I'm frothing at the bit, just blown away that it's so much different than what we're seeing on the labels. And as soon as I insinuated that we were even testing, something happened backstage. And it reminds, I say backstage, I mean in Facebook and social media, where all of a sudden I was seeing comments, one after another, that were just hate comments. And like 5 in a row from the same person. And first, first she says, "You spammers," and then she starts cussing, you know, and then the next one is something else angry. And then the third one is a large animal backed up to a camera pooping. And day after day, there would be 5 that I'd have to clean out, 1 or 2 people, but there'd always be an animal inappropriately, you know, saying, you know, it's a really low frequency of whoever is now showing up to do this. We're mad at you. We're going to try and make you look bad. So I just delete. Chris goes, "No, just hide," you know. So and now I'm hide. Nasty comments, because really what we want to do is bring the truth. And now that we're really kind of allowing the public to know that we have tested products, we do know that we're doing something exceptional at our company by putting 0.8 milligrams per milliliters of C60 in our olive oil. And it shows up like that on the HPLC machine. It's nice to know that you're getting what you pay for when you buy from C60 Evo, is the positive way to say it. But as soon as we started, like I said, talking about it a little bit, now there's a return of these interesting people that are doing the negative shows on C60, the fear mongering with no research papers to back it up, the angry words in the title, the "R," you know, on the picture with the video, C60 is toxic, it's poisonous, or whatever. And then there's another kind of consortium that had all the people we've proved that was really low frequencies right at the top, low purity, and then everybody but us.
Well, non-existent. The ones at the top of that list did not have any C60. They weren't selling a C60 product. One of them I tested, and then another one was tested by an industry leader, and that was outed on a video. They had it tested at a lab called Solaris.
So the point is, it's not like we're looking to cause problems. What we want to do is maintain the integrity of the C60 industry, because it is so important. And I'll bet that in a few years, it's going to be known as one of the greatest healing secrets of our time. Once we release all the great Tesla technologies, other than your car, Chris, you know, once we get our free energy, our, you know, the seed machine from crop circles, charge density plasma. I mean, we have all the greatest technologies right here. And luckily, C60 is one of them. And it's not a technology, it's something that scientifically Chris and Robert figured out how to make in the lab. And they didn't really plan on it being something that they would be taking and giving it
No,
to their wives,
no.
right? So
Yeah,
it wasn't,
no. That's kind of funny when you put it that way.
yeah. I mean, when you set out, did you ever think you'd be doing this for people?
Well, I mean, if you go back, and so the short answer is no. I've always been focused on people, helping people. And had you told me that at some point in my career, I would be getting testimonials from people about benefits that something I was doing was how it was impacting their lives, I would have believed that, because that's ingrained in me. I believe in giving back. I have programs in my companies that other companies, like even Shell, started emulating. One of the largest companies on the planet started emulating some of what I was doing in my little tiny company. So I'm always about giving. But had you said, "Hey, we're going to be taking this and we're going to and it's going to be impacting," that's what's going to be impacting, I would have said you're kind of crazy, because in reality, when that original 2012 study came out, again, it was supposed to be a toxicity study. People assumed that this was like a 3D version of benzene, and benzene is toxic, and benzene is a known carcinogen. And so they assumed that this was going to be toxic. They also assumed that it was going to be used by a lot of people in a lot of different applications. So when you have that situation, you've got to do toxicity studies. Well, this was the toxicity study. They took our product. We sold the raw C60 to them. And then they gave it to rats, right? So they gave rats water. That was the control group. Rats olive oil, and then rats olive oil with C60. And really, that's where I like to make the demarcation, right? C60 is for industrial applications, and there's peer-reviewed published research that shows if you improperly process C60, it is harmful. ESS 60 is C60 that's been processed for safer human consumption. So again, they gave those rats water, olive oil, and olive oil with ESS 60. And then they, instead of dying sooner, like the toxicity study should have been, they actually lived 90% longer than the control group. Not only that, a typical Worcester rat lives 32 months and has a known amount of tumors that increases. So the amount of tumors a Worcester rat has when it dies increases by how long they live. Our rats, the rats given the C60 Evo formula, lived 62 months. They actually had to euthanize the last rat so they could be done with the study. And there were no tumors in those rats. So it was pretty clear from that study in 2012 that this has some pretty remarkable results, right? It's the single longest longevity experiment on mammals, peer-reviewed published research ever. There's nothing longer in mammals that's peer-reviewed published research. And so at that point, the literature is pretty clear. C60 industrial applications, ESS 60 has this unbelievably positive result in its quote unquote toxicity study. And because we're still kind of nanomaterial scientists at that point, mid 2013, we start getting phone calls of people saying, "How much in a dose?" And we're like, "Well, no, I mean, I know the literature says it's safe, but we sell this to researchers to put in tires and ink and batteries and solar cells. You don't put this in your body." So we actually added, for the first time in company history, this is our conservative nature, not for human consumption. And so we were selling the oil-based product from mid 2013, and really at the end of 2017, a really popular guy started talking about all the benefits he was getting, and then now it was really like, we're like, okay, our customers are saying good things about this. This guy's saying good things about this. Now people are beating down our door requesting the product. Are we going to actually go down this path? And at that point, we just asked ourselves two questions. The first is a moral question. I take it, my wife takes it, everybody on our team takes it, so I'm comfortable selling it. And then a legal question, the FDA and the FTC, we're on the right side of both of those organizations. And so really, that's how we ended up here. But if you had asked, "Hey, that black stuff that you're working with and having a mask and black hair and black skin because this powder that you're working with is all over everything, because it's like if you take a handful of it and drop it, it's so light and fluffy, it actually won't even hit the ground. It'll just poof into a cloud of black. That stuff you're going to put in your body," I would have probably said you're crazy and asked you to leave.
Ah,
Right. Yeah, right. Well, you know, just carrying it along. I always say, I don't say C60, I say C60 Evo. And
Yep.
that, and the reason I do that was because I learned of your studies that a sizable number of companies who are offering a product that is labeled C60 have varying, and some, in one case at least, no C60 in their product,
Yeah.
which is consumer fraud. But,
Yes.
and so it's, it's in a market which is unregulated. And since everything is so new, consumers don't really know, you know, it's not like you're buying a wine, say, well, you know what's a good Merlot, you know, you can tell what the vintage is from the taste. You would really have to be very sophisticated to, on your own, gather what. And so I find it, because my undergraduate degree was in business administration, believe it or not, to find it yourself as an entrepreneur in what I consider to be a very important future business, how you go about regulating the quality of the overall business market when you see that other competitors in the market can get away with not just saying, well, I'll just call it C60. Nobody really knows anything, you know. And I'm wondering whether or not, because some of my brothers are in advertising, I'm the eldest of 9 children, is there any way that you can build this creatively into consumer education? You know, since, you know, it's kind of a very creative issue and problem. You know, not problem, but opportunity rather.
Yeah.
Education. What are your thoughts, Patty, on this?
well, that's why they invented ESS 60 as its own trademark statement, which means C60 that's been manufactured to be safe for human consumption. So anytime you see ESS 60 on a bottle, you can take it. You know that it's safe. If you don't see ESS 60 and you say C60 on the bottle, it's questionable. Questionable in a few ways. How much C60 is in it? Did it come from China? Is it safe?
Yeah.
And I have been taking C60 now 2 years, 2.5 years, and I was originally taking a different product that was in coconut oil. Now the C60 raw came from Chris's plant, SES. Pretty much I think everyone selling C60 has bought from SES at one time, but if they wanted to spend less and buy cheap C60 from China or somebody in Canada, if they want to save money, they're doing that at the expense of your health. So for my body, I'm so picky now because I don't play games. I don't want something on sale. I want the best. And I know that where the C60 is made is at SES Research Labs, which is our home. You know, that's our parent company. We're the newest brand, C60 Evo, and it's all happening under one roof. So I'm not going to run out of C60. I'm not going to run out of oil or bottles or bottle caps because these are a real lab. These guys have a real lab. And when I brought that first product that I had been taking for 1.5 years, whoa, this is so powerful. And they tested it in the lab. What was the results? The bottle, I think, said, thought it had 0.8%, but did it have less than 1%?
No, it wasn't less than 1%. The thing that was less than 1% was
Capsules.
black seed capsules. It was in the. I can tell you a story. So there's one manufacturer of C60 and oil out there, And he was purchasing his C60 and ultimately his ESS 60, because that's the only product we were comfortable selling from us, and then shifted off. He actually started buying from a company called Red Lion, and he's the one who did the video about how he had the Red Lion product tested and it actually didn't have any C60 in it. So he's, of course, at that point looking for, how am I going to get this made? So comes back and buys from us. And then I just had a conversation with him. I'm like, well, why don't you just have us make it? And he goes, okay. And we send him some pricing. He goes, oh, that's really expensive compared to my current team. And I'm like, well, send me your bottle. I want to make sure we're comparing apples to apples. And he had about 0.4% concentration. And so I'm like, do you want me to give you that same product, or do you want the maximum concentration that can go in that oil? So he's a good guy trying to do good things, and just doesn't have the technology to understand it. So we're going to get him on the right side of that. But no, not everybody's reaching out to us and trying to do the right thing. Here's the fundamental challenge I think most of the companies in the industry have. Since 1991, we've been selling this material to research institutions around the world. NASA, Department of Defense, Naval Aeronautical Weapons Station. Like, if you can think of a research organization, IBM, that has ever done research on fullerenes, it is very likely that they've purchased from us at one point or another and actually written a paper with our material. And if you look across that, when we sell to them, they actually have the equipment and the scientists to test our material, right? So it's not like, hey, I've got, just like you said, Alfred, oh, I can put whatever in it and call it C60. We were actually selling C60 to institutions who could tell us, oh, listen, I know you think you're selling 99% pure C60, but we tested it and it's wrong. We can't sell into that environment without exacting standards and without a scientific understanding of what we need to deliver, how it's going to be tested, how you actually test it, how you actually know what the concentrations are. And so we've done that since 1991. And now there's companies on the market who grab, apparently, right? And there's one example, who grab some fluffy black powder, stick it in their sunflower seed oil, and then sell it to people as C-60. And we kind of joke around here, the dash is perfect because it's really carbon minus 60. There's no C60 in it. And so that's the difference, is we've got a research pedigree. Everything we do is tested. And like, I doubt, even like before we send a product out, I double check our products, because we may think that we've got the right concentration, but until we test it and know that it's the right test, I don't believe it. So everything I do, I approach from this, hey, we got to make sure it's the right product before we send it. Because again, our pedigree is, if we send it to, IBM and they come back and say, well, it's not what you say it is, then we've got a whole different kind of problem. And that just doesn't exist for all these other customers out, all these other companies out here are selling a quote unquote C60 product.
So if 4 companies took the same amount of C60 and put it in the same oil, but had completely different concentrations, what would be the reasons, Chris, that the concentrations wouldn't be the maximum? If they put in 0.8, enough to be that for the whole vat of oil, why is it only coming out at a 0.4?
It's entirely dependent on your mixing tanks. What we found is that something you can do on a tabletop and easily get a 0.8 milligram per milliliter concentration on a desktop, just like a little mixer sitting on your table. If you upscale that and you start producing larger quantities, then you've got totally different fluid dynamic situations. So that ESS 60 that's floating around in there, if you don't have the right fluid dynamics in that chamber, all of that ESS 60 will just settle on some surface. Maybe it's the wall of the chamber, maybe it's the bottom of the chamber, and now it's not getting exposed to oil, and now it's not dissolving, and now it takes 3 weeks. So our large batches, we're mixing for 3 weeks in an inert gas environment. I think a lot of manufacturers out there were like, oh, it only took 2 weeks when we did it in this little Erlenmeyer flask on our desktop. So we're just going to get this big tank and we're going to only mix it for 2 weeks there. And they don't have the equipment to test it. So, and they're not testing regularly. So they're shipping products that are low in concentration.
Which is the reason that a lot of people may think, oh, I did it and it didn't work. I tried 2 different brands of C60 before I found one that worked. But again, I was doing some company's coconut oil thinking, wow, this is so strong. And then I took your C60 Evo in olive oil and it was like, wham! Because the coconut oil, no matter how much you mix it, no matter how much you put in, it will only hold 0.35 milligrams per milliliters of C60. So why will olive oil hold twice that much on a regular basis if mixed correctly? And coconut oil, why can't we get our concentration up with the coconut oil?
Oh, it's the same reason that, you know, I don't know if you ever have made hummingbird food, which is just sugar water, the same thing you would use to make mixed cocktails. Is basically it's a 1-to-1 water ratio. At some point, if you keep adding sugar, it no longer goes into solution. So that's how much you can dissolve in that water. Different oils, different concentrations. So in MCT oil, you just can't get more than 0.35 milligrams per milliliter. And by the way, it's an approximate. Yeah, I know you're using kind of absolute numbers. To be scientifically accurate, it's approximate, because this is an organic product. Every batch is actually different than the previous batch. And so there are variations within a batch. Those variations are relatively small and certainly not 50%, which is what we're seeing in some products. But in reality, there's a variation on each, and MCT just doesn't hold as much. So you've got olive oil, which is the creme de la creme, holds about 0.8. You've got avocado oil about 0.65, and then you've got MCT at about 0.35. Some people ask us if you can only get so much ESS 60 in the MCT oil, why does it hold the same price? And the reason is because we have exacting standards as it relates to the MCT that we're using. So one, it has to be organic. So if you were to just go out and say, hey, I want MCT, I don't care if it comes from palm oil, I just want MCT. Well, you can do that. And there's a lot of manufacturers of that stuff, which is we consider an inferior product. If you now say I want it to be organic, then that narrows the scope. And then if you further take it and say, I want it to be organic coconut oil, then you're talking about a much more exclusive product. And that's why the costs are the same across our different brands of oil.
I have always wondered, sorry, Alfred, I just have one more quick question. You've got a palm tree, it has coconuts, and it's a palm tree. Palm oil is what compared to coconuts up there? Is palm oil what they tap the trunk? What's palm oil compared
So palm
to
oil is actually a different, and I know this actually because I visited a palm orchard in Honduras when I visited Honduras once. So it's not from the same tree. It's a totally different tree. The palm tree, which is responsible for vegetable oil and palm oils in general, just makes a fruit that is very oily, right? And that's different than the coconut. So instead of a coconut, it makes a palm fruit. And that's why you have palm oil being different than coconut oil.
Thank you. I didn't know that.
You know, this question came up for me while I was hearing you talk about this, and that is, what do you find in terms of your not your corporate customers, but your personal customers, people who use it, the ESS? What are their principal reasons for using C60 Evo ESS? What motivates them? What are the principal reasons you find? Do you have that kind of feedback?
Yeah, people care about their health, and now we have to really boost the immune system. So What is everybody promoting? High dose vitamin C. What does the SS60 have in it? High dose vitamin C. But it's not vitamin
Well,
C.
hold on. Yeah,
It's
yeah,
the
it's not vitamin C.
molecule. I
Yeah,
apologize.
yeah.
It's more powerful by far than vitamin C. So it's a replacement for what everybody is recommending in the hospitals because they don't know yet about the C60 molecule being able to be this potent. So we're doing everything we can to educate the public, and we really appreciate your monthly shows. You're doing one show a day. I cannot believe how much news you put out, Alfred. And what we notice, or I notice, because every order, I look at where these people are coming from. I'm fascinated. And I think your shows, I've said this before, have the most international audience of anyone. Uh, Israel, New Zealand, Australia, Ireland, Norway. I mean, the sales after your show, the letters that we get from people are usually pretty far away, and of course, a lot in Canada. But, I think that what we need to do is get it out, get the information out. And so now here we are in this time when Chris and I and his partner Rob they have the lab down there. They bought all these products to test, but I was the one that insinuated, we know what's going on. We encourage everyone to have the integrity to either up your dose of C60 or lower what your bottle says, just so we can have integrity in the field. And what I'm feeling is the same thing that I felt when ufology died. And you and I lived through that, Alfred. I was a speaker. I made movies. I was the crop circle girl, and I won a lot of awards for my films. And while I was watching, ufology died. It was like something changed, and all the great people passed away. Everybody but me. And I'm like, gee, wonder how I survived. And it's because I'm gulping the stuff, but it really has been a shocking loss in the last 5 years of all the greats that are in my early films. And I watched it happen, and I experienced, oh, Chris is going to power up, and then he's going to talk really fast.
My
but what
7.5.
I watched was painful because we had Bob Dean, Wendell Stevens. I mean, we had 4-star generals. We had Edgar Mitchell before he was, I'm sorry to say, infiltrated at the end of his life. It was like everything got infiltrated. And now, oh my God, you couldn't pay me to go to any of the UFO events, but it's actors. It's like the beautiful, brilliant field of wisdom keepers all were like somehow removed, and many of them died for whatever reason in the short period of time. And now it's all actors. And the stories are so insane. I can't listen more than 5 minutes to any of the new, and then I had sex with a reptilian alien. So I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear about the spaceship to pick your little brother up. That's nice. There might be probably many real stories, but what we're seeing highly promoted today that comes on YouTube and immediately 150,000 views, it's like, yeah, that just happened. So I've been watching it. I know what it smells like when it shows up. And unfortunately, unbeknownst to Chris, I've kind of insinuated, but I'm smelling it in C60 land now. It feels almost like this subtle rising infiltration of people making crappy product, of people talking about the whole field, but not including us. And we don't want that to happen. We want to create like a community of C60 retailers, because there's enough business for everyone. And what we want to do is to be promoting the truth. We don't want to be saying NASA bought up all the, that was such a big story, and it was never true that NASA bought up all the C60. But I wasn't there to help kind of clean it up. And Patty, the whistleblower, I'm the first one to put up a stop sign and say, whoa, not okay. But I'm seeing the pushback from people knowing that we know what's going on, but we're doing it for the benefit of the industry. Chris has been at it for 29 years, even though he's only 33. Look at him. He's 50 and he looks amazing. And again, I think that C60 has made it so I'm being a good girl, not going out, but I'm not scared to get sick. My system is so powered up that I don't feel like anything could affect me. So I really encourage people to not be so scared. I really think something far bigger is going on, and we're not going to know for a week or two, but if it's true that the arrests are happening, if it's true that Hollywood is what we've been hearing, if it's true that the past presidents are what we've been hearing, or their wives, then it's going to be one of those sit-down recoveries when the doors open and we're allowed to come back outside again. I can't even fathom what just my family alone, you know, to realize that maybe conspiracy mom wasn't so crazy after all, that, oh my God, I think the conspiracy theorist people, I think we're going to get a lot of apologies if we come out of this on the right side for humanity. And I think we will. I really believe that, you know, we should take advantage of not working. Those of you that go to a job you don't like, you might feel differently after a week of not going to that job. But I want to say that on the other hand, I just went to Mexico to the most beautiful Melia resort. Oh my God, it was so great in Cancun. The most fantastic employees, the buffet, they couldn't serve you well enough. And I've communicated on Facebook with the guy that introduced me to the resort. He was just fabulous. And so last night he said, how you doing? And I said, fine. How's the resort doing? My God, business must be down. He said they closed the resort and fired everyone. Fired everyone? I'm sorry. You mean postponed or put off, or is your government giving you anything? And he just, so I want to remind everyone to be incredibly grateful for your blessings and to be careful with your health. And when people say, oh, C60 is so expensive, well, yeah, in the 80s and 90s, it was more valuable than gold per gram. So that's a fact. And even though Chris and Robert make it, I imagine the graphite rods are not cheap. And the machine, you know, the maintenance and everything that it takes to create C60, there would be a lot more people making it if it was something easy to do. And there aren't. So lucky me, I'm working with the big boys. When everybody runs out of C60, we're not gonna, because we're the ones making it. But again, it's also about the quality of that C60 being ESS 60 that has been manufactured to be safe for human consumption, so that Chris can give it to his beautiful wife and feel good about it, and his mom. You know, a lot of people, I do want to mention that I gave somebody a bottle recently and she said, oh man, I had diarrhea and I got kind of queasy. And I said, you know, at the beginning, we should probably have a little warning that if you're really toxic, you're going to have a little nausea maybe as you start to detox, because it neutralizes free radicals. And in my opinion, that's a whole lot of detoxing on typical system that's living in a world like we do. So don't be discouraged if you start taking your ESS 60, your C60 Evo, and you do a spoonful in the morning and feel a little queasy, cut back to a half a spoonful. Alfred, you started really small. You were doing like little bird-sized drop, and now you're back to a teaspoon. How you feel with the different that you're taking more now? Do you notice the difference?
Well, it was through Chris's encouragement that I went from, let me see, what was it? I used to do 0.25 milligrams a day through my eyedropper up to 0.50 milligrams, and then
Milliliters.
to milliliters, up to 1 milliliter, then now up to 4 milliliters, which is a teaspoon. But I think that that it must be the purity, because I don't feel an overload on my system, you know. So it must be the purity in the C60 ESS that is, yeah. And people in these times have sort of shot people in my position and profession into hyperspace, you know, because we have to rush and report the news and get the lawsuit started and do this and that. And so I'm very grateful that I can, that I have that rocket fuel.
It really is. I agree. I think it's a brain fuel. I also think it's a mental balancer, you know, for people that are off center. I think it really does something.
Yeah, it is. And Chris, I have a question. Do you have any articles, like either scientific articles or in process, or that you're going to publish? Or, because I think that I'm not sure, you know, each field has a journal, right? And I'm not sure that there's the Journal of C60 Studies, but what if you started the Journal of C60 Studies or the Journal of C60 ESS Studies, and you know, it could start as an online thing, and really, you know, so people could go there and really start. And anyway, I'm just kind of tossing out these concepts, or maybe that exists already.
Well, so you know, back in 1996, when they ultimately were Harold Kroto and Curl were ultimately awarded the Nobel Prize for discovering the molecule. If you backtrack about 5 years from that award, in 1991, all 10 of the most 10 cited public scientific publications were related to fullerenes. So that was the I'm not sure that there's ever been another molecule that's generated so much excitement in the scientific community as the buckyball. I can tell you asked about what studies we're working on. We're working on two, and I talk about this. I've got this on my finger. It's an Oura ring. It's one of the better sleep trackers on the market. We're working to get 25 people who already have Oura rings. We've already got, or at least Oura ring, and the scientist that I'm in contact who works with Oura ring. He's actually out of UC San Diego. Actually just started a post there. He has access to that data, and then we're sending those people our product so that we can get, you know, 10 days of data prior to our product, 10 days to data on our product, 10 days off the product, and then 10 days back on the product. And so we're doing that to get actual data. So that's going to be kind of an introductory sleep study. We're already working on it. I've already got 3 subjects. One is all the way through. 2 are partially the way through. I haven't actually looked at the data recently. And then a number of them are getting started. We don't have 25 yet. So that's one of the pieces of research that we're sponsoring and taking care of. The other is to reproduce that original rat study. So typical scientific process is predict a result. In this case, they predicted it would be toxic. Get a result. Hello, it's not toxic. The rats live 90% longer and don't have any tumors. And then the next step is usually for another scientific organization to reproduce those results. Nobody's stepped up to do that yet. So we're actually doing the initial funding necessary in order to get that study started again, to redo that original study. So that's what we're driving forward. I would imagine that, you know, there's so much excitement about this. I'm talking with other biohackers on a regular basis, and if they are not using our product, or they've probably heard of our product. So if that's going on, then there's, you know, medical researchers who are hearing about it, and so those studies will be starting soon. And we're happy to support any medical researcher who's going to do a study. That's one of our missions, is to help those studies occur.
I want to focus on the Worcester rats that typically have tumors, and the ones with C60 didn't. I mean, to me, we shouldn't gloss over that. That's huge in a world full of tumors.
Yes.
So
It's
how does
massive.
that happen?
Yeah, it's a massive result, and you're probably right, Patty. I tend to glaze over it because it goes down a path that, you know, as a scientist makes me a little nervous. You start throwing around cancer and saying that there were no tumors, all of a sudden people's minds kind of immediately go to, oh, it's a cure for cancer, and that's, you know, it's dangerous to even imply that, right? Because cancer is such a horrible disease and impacts people so negatively. It's not right to imply those things. And there's a huge difference between being a cancer preventative and being a cancer cure, right? So once it's metastasized, curing that is a whole different kind of medical realm. We know things as simple as better sleep and exercise and eating healthier are actually cancer preventative. So the implication of that lack of tumors in the rats that were given the C60 Evo formula is that it's a cancer preventative. But you know, there's no research that specifically, so other than that particular study, that supports that. And certainly, I just ask people who are listening to me, don't leapfrog and say, "Oh, this is a cure for cancer." There's nothing to suggest that. There's nothing to not suggest it. And frankly, given all the testimonials that people are sending us, if somebody called me yesterday, you know, tomorrow and said it cured this, I would first say, well, I can't use the word cure and I can't use the word this because it's because of the FDA, and it wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, didn't you say you heard somebody was feeling better with Parkinson's after getting on C60 Evo?
The Parkinson's study that, or not study, sorry, there is no study that I'm aware of. The Parkinson's kind of testimonial was my business partner, Robert, was on the phone with one of our customers, and the lady shared with him, oh, I've got some Parkinsonian type tremors, and my doctor had prescribed me some Parkinsonian drugs to help with the tremors. She never filled the prescription. She just started taking the C60 Evo formula, went back to her doctor, and her doctor saw how she had improved and was like, wow, those Parkinsonian drugs that I gave you were much better than I thought they were going to be. And she never really expressed to her doctor that she hadn't fulfilled that prescription. And I actually get that quite a bit, where people are like, yeah, my doctor was really surprised. And I'm like, well, did you tell him that you're taking, you know, ESS 60? And a lot of people are just kind of uncomfortable sharing with their doctor that, you know, they didn't do exactly like the doctor told them, and actually ended up, you know, better results. So it's interesting, people's what seems to be traditional interaction with physicians.
Well, I know my doctor
Yeah,
said
that is a remarkable finding, and so I'm suggesting that you could open a whole new window that would take those and sort of open a research, you know, kind of a public education division. But I guess that's for the future, you know, that would develop each of those anecdotal things coming in. You know, we've now come to the magical 60-minute mark, and I know that time flies.
Yes.
But are there any points that you had wanted to bring up that you perhaps didn't have a chance to, or?
No, I think we got them all, Patty.
I always like to end the show to give people relief that if they would like to try the product, you can get 20% off if you sign up for a subscription, which is monthly. You sign up once and you get it every month, 20% off. And you can cancel at any time if you're not as impressed as Alfred and Chris and myself. But all of us take it. We've been taking it for quite a while. Alfred and I used to take a different brand that was a fraction as strong as what we're taking now. And Oh, I mean, I just love it. I feel like I'm impenetrable with corona, with all, I mean, I just never get sick. But I'm also healing really, really quickly from anything where I test my body. I'm healing really well. And my doctors, I always look at them and I say, is this normal, my healing? And, you know, recently, it's just last week, she said, no, this is really exceptional. And I wanted to have her put it in writing, but, you know, but I feel confident that it's such a good product, and so don't feel dissuaded. You know, take the discount, sign up, and give it a go. And if you love it, you can save money on that huge pile maybe of all those other things that you buy regularly that maybe aren't helping as much as you think. You know, what we're finding is a bottle with a label doesn't always give you what's in the bottle. I only know that with C60 land, but we definitely know it. And so, you know, I can only imagine a lot of the things that are lined up on most people's counters that are expensive. If you have one thing that works, then you can avoid 6 things that maybe not, you know. And what you want to do is try it. You want to push those things aside and give it a go, and maybe have it be what you do as your go-to. And I think people will be very impressed. We do a military discount. People that are in the military, 10% off. It's ML10. Whatever you buy, you can get 5% off more through Alfred's special code, which is ALW, his initials, ALWSPEC, special. So Alfred's initial special will get you 5% off anything you buy. And if you've got friends and you all want to go together and get a case, that's 25% off, which is the biggest discount that we do. And that's 12 bottles, and you can get any size, any flavor. And every time I see an order for coconut oil, I always want to send people the video and say, would you watch this video and see if you really want less than half the C60? Because it is the same price. And it does cost more for the good coconut MCT organic oil, but still, I'm doing it for the C60. So I highly encourage people to go with olive oil, even if you don't love it, which I didn't, now I do. And you take it on a spoon, it's so effortless. I try and take it on a spoon. Half the time I just tip the bottle because I'm bad that way. When I'm in a hurry or when I'm spontaneous, I'll go, oh yeah, grab the bottle. If you drip a little on the kitchen counter, as you're taking it, falls off the spoon. Even I wipe the spoon, rub it on my hands, put it on my face. And I think I'm on layer 2 of my face changing. And I have been really experimenting with the C60. And I'm seeing layers of skin come off in a good way. And I could almost do a show. I was telling Chris, it could be called What Left My Body This Week. I have had so much impurities leave me in different ways and forms that it's kind of humorous at this point. But even my face, I'm really cleaning my pores, and then I rub with C60 and the antibacterial. I mean, it doesn't get much better. So I know that what I'm trying to do is really recalibrate my body, recalibrate my skin, and do a thorough job, and C60 Evo works. So give it a go, give it a try, back off on expensive products that maybe haven't been working for you, and you'll find it's not that big of an investment. What's your health worth? I mean, good golly, if you don't feel good, you can't be very useful in the world. So even though a lot of companies and businesses are shut down, lucky for us, we are one of those companies that is still open for business, still shipping. So go online, c60evo.com, and use whatever code you want to get a better price for a better product.
And I'd like to say that c60evo.com is a sponsor of Exopolitics TV, which Google is not. and so that it's really appreciated when this circle works, and they are very generous and have given us 15% of what you purchase come back in to support our communications, and 5% come back to you. If it's a subscription, 20% come to you. If it's a case, 25%. And so there are these circular things that work, and we can get up into a higher kind of a higher reality, I think. And I think some of those things are starting to emerge now in this new whatever we're in.
New energy.
New energy, that's it.
It really is.
This-
I mean, the skies are cleaner. The earth is going, finally, you're giving me a break.
yeah,
So
Good.
power up the grid, power up your own grid, and take good care of you.
well, thank you very much for taking time out to join us, Chris and Patty.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Alfred.
And we look forward to your joining us again.
Thank you.
Good enough then.